All right, let's get ready for Week 13. Rams 7-4, Cardinals 6-5. A significant, huge game in the division and in the playoff chase, because if the Cardinals lose, all of a sudden they have to worry about not getting in at all. Here is Rams quarterback Jared Goff from earlier this week. He's been criticized publicly by Coach Sean McVay. Here's Goff with his reaction to getting called out by his head coach.
If he was lying, I'd feel differently about it. He's absolutely right, and I'm a big boy. I can handle it. We have a great relationship, and I'm accountable for myself. I need to be better than that. I need to take care of the football, and he's absolutely right, and I will, and I have done that for the majority of my entire football career, and will continue to take care of the football better.
3 turnovers in the loss at home to the 49ers last week. Kyler Murray has not been the same guy since he threw the Hail Murray pass to DeAndre Hopkins nearly 3 weeks ago. They've lost 2 in a row since then. Which quarterback do you think is more likely to bounce back from recent rough performances?
I think it's probably more likely Goff, because I think Goff, his biggest thing right now is that I think Sean McVay does such a great job, and you've seen it over the last few years since he's been working with Jared Goff. McVay does a great job of looking at his quarterback and what he does well. And what I think he's going to do, one of the things that's so dangerous with the Rams offense, both with Cooper Kupp and with Robert Woods, is a lot of the sort of the crossers and the places where they can get the ball in short space, not far, intermediate crossers, and then take them and use their speed and athletic ability and ability to make people miss and make big plays out of it. I'm reminded of the Marquise Brown play on Wednesday, the Trace McSorley to Marquise Brown play where, Marquise Brown just makes people miss. And I think that's one of the great things about the Rams receivers. I would expect to see a lot of that with Jared Goff this week.
Yeah, and that seems to be the identity of the Rams offense at this point. Post Todd Gurley, they've tried to go with multiple running backs. I'd like to see them settle on one. I feel like they don't have much of an identity in the running game, and the passing game is the quick crosser, Robert Woods or Cooper Kupp, and we see him take off and get what they can, and not a lot of the ball in the air down the field, not a lot of movement by Jared Goff, although they do the bootlegs, but he's not a guy that you have to worry about taking off with the football very often. He's got limitations in his game. And the turnovers, clearly a concern, and we'll see what Sean McVay is able to do to get more out of him. But this is a big game for both of those teams, and they'll play twice now over the balance of the season, both Week 13 and Week 17. The Saints and the Falcons just got together a couple of weeks ago, and the story of that game was the debut of Taysom Hill. Once we knew that Taysom Hill was going to be the quarterback, many believed throughout the course of the week it would be Jameis Winston. Hill now 2-0, and he gets another crack at the Falcons, but the Falcons get another crack at him. One of the things Sims thinks is that the Falcons will take away the run game and force Taysom Hill to finally throw the ball. If that's the case, do you think Hill is at the point where he can run that offense from a passing perspective without the run threat?
He's going to have his opportunity, Mike. I think Chris is absolutely right. In talking to Raheem Morris this week, I think he's got his defense. I don't know if you watched a lot of their game the other day, but I was convinced after watching that game against the Raiders the other day that Raheem Morris has added something to that defense, and that is a physicality and a real hunting aspect to that defense that really had not been there in the first 4 games of the season. And when I look at that game and how frustrated, there are 2 or 3 times where you could just see Derek Carr was hugely frustrated in that game. And I think this defense is playing energetically, and this defense absolutely unequivocally, they will try to make, they're going to try to make Taysom Hill throw the ball. And if they do, that's why I think this is, if I were looking at the game, remember, Mike, when we used to be at football night and Dan Patrick would walk in and he would say, yep, here's the upset pick this week. I like the Bengals over the Dolphins. Everybody would say, oh, you're crazy. And then at 4 o'clock that afternoon, we'd say, oh, my God. Bengals killed the Dolphins. What happened? What did you know, Dan? And I think this would be Dan's game this week, Atlanta over New Orleans.
Yeah, he was right like 90% of the time. It was eerie.
He really was. It was uncanny,
It was the old E.F. Hutton thing. When he would start muttering about the upset, we'd all stop and listen to what Dan had to say because he was right far more often than not. Raheem Morris showing that he may be the right guy for the job, Peter. And, I'm always a little leery of making the interim coach the permanent coach.
Right.
The only time that's ever really worked out long-term was when Jeff Fisher became the interim coach of the Houston Oilers in 1994. I mean, it kind of worked with Jason Garrett, although I don't think at the end of the day he was as successful as people hoped he would be, specifically Jerry and Stephen Jones. But my concern is that you see an artificial bump from the players who are in the locker room because they don't want a new boss deciding who stays and who goes. So let's go out and play extra hard for the interim coach. He gets the job, and then we can go back to stinking again next year. I've seen that movie so many times. I get leery about that. And now that said, Raheem Morris has had an opportunity to earn the job on the fly, and he's got 5 more games to do it. And if he gets to 8-3 or 9-2 or even 7-4 with a team that was 0-5, how do you not make him a serious candidate?
Here's the thing that Raheem Morris has to do, and Mike, he knows it. They have a schedule down the stretch in which they face the Saints, the Chiefs, and the Bucs twice. Okay, so those are 4 games that probably in every game they're going to be the underdog. So in those 4 games, somehow, some way, he's got to find a way to win 2 of them. He just does. If you look at their schedule down the stretch, somehow, some way, Raheem Morris has got to get 3 wins out of that group, and maybe 4. But, I do think the difference in that team, especially on defense, is so noticeable when you watch them now. The energy they're playing with, the passion, the physicality. Deion Jones is playing at a Pro Bowl level right now, and I don't think he was the first 5 games of the season. So we'll see what happens, but I think he's got his work cut out for him. But either here or somewhere else, if they play well down the stretch, he's going to either get an interview or he's going to get a job.
Another dynamic to point out, Peter, something you said in relation to the Lions at the end of last hour, hire the GM, let the GM hire the coach. What will that dynamic be as the Falcons look for a GM? Are you going to hire a GM and tie the GM's hands by saying, we've already decided Raheem Morris is going to be the coach? That limits your universe of potential GM candidates if part of the job is we've already hired your first head coach, even though you have other candidates in mind. So I think that complicates it as well. If the Falcons do want to go in that direction, it could make it harder to get the GM that they want.
I think it'd be unfair to hire a GM and say your coach is Raheem Morris. I think it would be fair to say we're hiring you and we're going to sit down and figure out if our coach is Raheem Morris, or if there's somebody else you feel is better for it, let's interview him and let's make that decision. The one difference here is where we said in Detroit, hire the GM, let the GM make that decision. Look, Arthur Blank and Rich McKay are going to sign off on this coach. They've been there too long, and I don't think they're going to abdicate their responsibility hiring a GM and then saying, oh, we're going to get out of the way. You hire the coach.
Rich McKay, another example of the best job to have in football, team president, pays well, and you don't get fired, even when everybody else does. I'm not saying Rich McKay should. I'm just making the observation. If you're the team president, you are golden because when the purge comes, you're still standing. All right, the Browns and Titans, somebody's going to be standing at 9-3 when this one is done. Now, this is a game, Peter, I'm conflicted on this one because I look at it on the surface and I say this is a clash of titans, literally in one respect. 8-3 and 8-3. This is game of the week material. Remember back when we were kids and they'd have that half-hour package devoted to the game of the week? It was Harry Callis or John Facenda doing the narration with the slow-motion NFL films. You always wonder which game is the game of the week. This should be it. But until the Browns can prove to me that they can beat a great team, I'm going to look at this and I'm going to scoff and say, yeah, they're 8-3, but they've fattened up on lesser opponents and they can't beat great teams. Am I right or am I wrong?
Look, I look at what they've done in 3 of their big games. And again, you're going to say, well, of course, you're going to pick out their 3 losses. 6 points against the Baltimore Ravens, lose by 32. 7 points against the Steelers, lose by 31. 6 points against the Raiders in a quagmire at home, lose by 10. And you're right, Mike. I mean, they have had some nice wins this year. They've beaten the Colts. They won at Dallas when that still seemed like a big deal. So this is a good team. This is a good team. But I still want to see Baker Mayfield stand in there, make some huge plays, and win a game when he doesn't have to rely on his running game and Myles Garrett. To me, I still am skeptical about Baker Mayfield. Maybe he'll prove me wrong. But at this point, I think a game like this is up to Baker Mayfield. He's got to make big plays on the road against a really good team, and especially against a ground-hugging offense that likes to eat the clock.
Dramatic difference in Baker Mayfield's performance against teams below 500 and everyone else. 7-0 against teams under 500, 1-3 against the rest of the NFL. The Colts was the signature win for the Browns this year. And Baker Mayfield reminds me a lot of Kirk Cousins in that if the running game is there and you have time to run the pass offense and do the bootlegs and get out of the pocket, no one's chasing you because the play action has frozen the linebackers and you have time to read the field and see who's open, then it's fine. But when the run game isn't there and Baker Mayfield is harassed, he's not one of those quarterbacks that when the walls close in and the play that you've called isn't working, can improvise and make something happen like the truly great quarterbacks. Now, he's good enough, but as the Browns search for better than good enough, I hate to say it because I'm still kind of on the fence about what Baker Mayfield's going to be. But
so am I.
I'm kind of on the fence. I'm on the fence about what he's going to be. And he needs one of these signature wins that make us say, wow, he stepped up in a big moment, in a big spot. He made the big throw with a guy in his face and completed it 30 yards down the field. And they won a game that they were supposed to lose. Until they do that, that's how we're going to view them. A team that is getting the absolute most out of what it has, but that it doesn't have enough to be among the best teams in the conference or in the league.
Look, what happened when it looked like that Freddie Kitchens was the answer for Baker Mayfield because they had such great chemistry together? Freddie Kitchens gets the job. Baker Mayfield, I don't want to say he's a disaster, but he did not play well. And so now they come back again for another bite at the apple. And they take the guy who loses out to Freddie Kitchens in that job. And they hire Kevin Stefanski. And Kevin Stefanski comes in praising Baker Mayfield to the nines, and he's great. And so far this year, it's been totally a mixed bag. Baker Mayfield is completing 61% of his passes. I don't know what the average in the league is, but that's below the league average. You have a head coach who's a quarterback coach, who's with you every single day and who's calling plays designed to make you successful. You can't be completing 61% of your throws. So that's got to improve, and we'll see if it starts this week in Nashville.
And it's going to be a challenge because the Titans, after going through a rough spot middle of the season, they've rediscovered that they need to ride Derrick Henry as long as they can. He's been phenomenal the last 2 weeks, had the big run to win the overtime game in Baltimore, took over against the Colts. And Ryan Tannehill told me after the game, we just have to roll with Derrick Henry as long as we possibly can. We've seen him come on strong 2018, 2019, late in the year, and he's got a big push now, and he's over 1,200 rushing yards already with 5 games left. If he keeps playing like he has the last couple of weeks, he's going to finish with one of the best individual seasons for a running back in NFL history, and it's going to get the Titans a division title and maybe a good spot in the postseason.
Hi, I'm Mike Tirico, and thanks for watching. Make sure to hit subscribe for the latest news and highlights from NBC Sports.